some people quietly cut off draining relationships without drama or hesitation. When they reach their limit, something simply clicks, and they walk away forever. Society often labels them as avoidant, antisocial, or overly defensive. Yet, they don't feel lonely or broken. They feel profound relief. What those who judge them fail to realize is that they weren't always quick to leave. Once, they were the exact opposite. There was a long chapter of your life where you were the absolute anchor for everyone around you. You were the reliable one. You were the friend who picked up the phone at 2 a.m. to talk them down from the ledge. You were the family member who absorbed the tension at the dinner table like a human sponge, frantically trying to keep the peace. You listened to the same complaints, offered the same empathy, watched them make the same reckless mistakes, and you stayed anyway. You gave, and you gave, and you gave, until one day, the math simply stopped making sense. You realized you were financing other people's emotional comfort with your own mental health. So you stopped. You pulled back. Psychologist Murray Bowen spent his career studying family systems, and he gave this exact phenomenon a name. He called it emotional cutoff. It is the psychological mechanism where a person manages their unresolved emotional issues with parents, siblings, and friends by reducing or totally cutting off emotional contact with them. In simple terms, it is the ultimate circuit breaker. When a system is overloaded with too much electricity, the breaker trips so the whole house does not burn down. Your brain did exactly the same thing, but to understand why your circuit breaker is so sensitive today, we have to look at how it was wired in the first place. Because your nervous system did not just wake up one morning and decide that other people were a threat. It was trained. Maybe you were the kid who grew up reading The Room before you could read books. By the late 1990s, you were not just a child going about your day. You were a highly trained radar operator in your own home. You knew that a $4.99 Blockbuster, late fee sitting on the kitchen counter, was not just a piece of paper. It was the catalyst for a 3-day atmospheric shift in your house, and you needed to be ready for it. You learned to navigate the exact specific squeak of the third step on your staircase, so you would not wake anyone up and trigger a mood swing. You sat in the blue glow of a heavy CRT television playing Nick at Night reruns at 1 a.m, feeling your shoulders finally drop for the first time all day, simply because the house was asleep and you were finally safe from being needed. By the time you were a teenager, you had mastered the art of distance. You were the kid in 2004 who used an AOL Instant Messenger away message, not because you were actually away from your computer, but because it was the only socially acceptable way to put a digital shield between you and the exhausting demands of everyone else. You learned early that closeness came with a cost. You learned that love and unpredictability were a packaged deal. So you adapted. You learned to close your bedroom door with a quiet click, mastering the lock so it wouldn't make a sound. You built an early warning system. And now, as an adult, that exact same pattern shows up every single time someone gets too close and starts showing signs of chaos. Psychologists have a biological framework for this. Dr. Stephen Porges calls it the polyvagal theory. Your nervous system has different operational modes, and one of them is designed specifically for extreme protection. When you have been drained too many times, when your empathy has been weaponized against you, your brain does not wait for your conscious permission to act. It bypasses your polite social conditioning entirely. It flips a switch. It drops you out of social engagement mode and plunges you straight into what researchers call the dorsal vagal response. In everyday language, shut down, withdraw, conserve energy. You go numb to that person. The emotional tether is severed, not because you are malicious, but because your nervous system is doing its exact biological job. It is protecting your energy like it is a finite, highly valuable resource. Which, by the way, it is. But here is where we need to have a very honest conversation. Here is the dark side of this superpower. The shadow that falls over you when you get too good at walking away. Fortresses are incredible at keeping the monsters out, but if you never lower the drawbridge, you will eventually starve inside your own walls. There is a profound, undeniable cost to prolonged social isolation. And it is not just in your head. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recently released a massive report on the physical toll of loneliness. The data is staggering. Prolonged social isolation increases your risk of heart disease by 29%. It increases your risk of stroke by 32%. It is not just an emotional ache. It is a biological risk factor on par with smoking cigarettes. When you cut everyone off, when you assume that every single person is eventually going to drain you, your nervous system stays locked in a low-grade state of threat. You stop trusting the good people because you are so obsessed with keeping out the bad ones. You accidentally push away the friends who genuinely want to support you because your brain is so accustomed to war that peace actually feels like a trap. But here is what the clinical reports and the societal judgments completely miss about your specific situation. Being entirely alone might be dangerous, but being surrounded by the wrong people is just as deadly. So how do you know the difference between a trauma response and a healthy boundary? It comes down to intent. Walls block absolutely everyone. They block the good, the bad, the neutral, and the uncertain. Walls are built entirely out of fear. Boundaries are selective. They are built out of self-awareness. If you cut someone off and you spent the next 6 months agonizing, feeling isolated, and wishing you had people around you, that is isolation. But if you cut someone off, heard that quiet click in your brain, and felt an immediate washing wave of peace, that is not isolation. That is protection. The question you have to ask yourself is not whether you should let people in. The question is which specific people have earned the right to access your peace. And chances are you already have an incredible, scientifically validated radar for figuring out exactly who those people are. Here is something fascinating about people who cut others off. You do not do it randomly. You do not do it because you are overly sensitive. You do it because you have become a master at recognizing patterns. That friend who only texts you when their life is falling apart, but magically disappears when you need a favor. You spotted their rhythm by month 2. That family member whose compliments are always thinly veiled criticisms. You decoded their language years ago. That charismatic new person who love bombs you with attention and then abruptly pulls away. You saw the end of the cycle before it even started. A breakthrough 2023 study published in Nature Neuroscience looked at the brains of adults who experienced early emotional stress. The researchers found that these individuals developed significantly heightened activity in the threat detection regions of their brain. In other words, your brain literally rewired itself to become hyper-efficient at reading people. Researchers at the University of Iowa backed this up, discovering that the frontal lobe, the exact part of the brain responsible for complex social decisions and predicting future outcomes, works absolute overtime in people with your background. You are not paranoid. You are processing social micro-expressions, tone shifts, and behavioral inconsistencies at a level that most people do not even have access to. That feeling in your gut when something is slightly off with a person. That is not anxiety. That is thousands of hours of childhood data refined into a military-grade early warning system. And when that system tells you that a person is going to drain your life force, you have finally learned to listen. So no, you are not broken for walking away. You are highly selective. Society uses words like withdrawn or antisocial to describe you, but those words imply a deficit. They assume that because you are alone, you must be missing something. They assume you are incomplete without constant, noisy connection. I want to offer you a different word: solitude. Loneliness is the painful absence of the connection you desperately want. Solitude is the beautiful presence of the peace you actively chose. You are not sitting alone in your room, wishing your phone would ring. You are sitting in your curated space, surrounded by the life you built, finally able to hear your own thoughts. Your phone is quiet, and that quiet feels like a deep, cleansing breath. People who have never had to fight for their peace will look at your life and say you are running away from connection. Let them think that. You know the truth. You are not running away from anything. You are running towards something. You are running toward clarity. You are running toward a version of yourself that simply cannot exist in chaotic, one-sided relationships. That is not isolation. That is sanctuary. If you are watching this video and you have spent years wondering if you are secretly cold or heartless or fundamentally incapable of unconditional love, I want you to hear this loud and clear. There is nothing wrong with you. You are a person who learned, through painful trial and error, that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Instead of letting that harsh reality make you cruel, you made a quiet, dignified choice to guard your energy. You chose to build a life that feels gentle. That is not a character flaw. That is one of the quietly fiercest, most brave things a human being can do. Should you be curious about what genuine well-being entails moving forward, research offers a profound insight. A comprehensive 75-year Harvard study followed participants for nearly a century to discover the true source of human happiness. Their findings were strikingly straightforward. Joy relies entirely on the caliber of your relationships, rather than the sheer number of them. It boils down to experiencing a sense of safety, feeling truly understood, and finding security with the select few you welcome into your inner world. Having a tiny social circle isn't a failure, especially if those individuals bring you calm rather than triggering your anxiety. In fact, if your companions soothe your nervous system, you are navigating relationships flawlessly. If this reminds you of that one exceptionally dependable but utterly drained friend who constantly carries the weight of others' issues, share this message with them. They deserve to know their fatigue is recognized. Finally, if you intimately understand that silent snap of walking away, and if these words offer the validation you've been subconsciously seeking, remember, you aren't alone. Drop a comment below. I read each one. Guard your tranquility.